Okay, I'm looking for the live button. She said there's going to be a live button.
There it is.
You see a live button? Okay, all right. Hi, I am Joy Sewing. I am with the Houston Chronicle, and we're here on the Houston Chronicle's Arts and Entertainment Preview page. And I'm with two of my favorite writers, authors, creative people, Houston natives who are doing it, big things in Hollywood, Attica and Tembi Locke. They're sisters, and we are so glad to have them. This is being brought to you by the Houston Association of Black Journalists and the Houston Chronicle as part of the first virtual National Association of Black Journalists Convention and the Hispanic Association of Black Journalists Convention. So welcome everybody out there with both conventions, and we hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, ladies.
Hi, Joy.
Hi. Well, I'm so thrilled that we were able to get both of you together because I know you are very busy out in Hollywood. So, okay, why don't we just start with what's been going on during this pandemic? I know I've been watching stuff, on Netflix and everything, but what have you all been up to?
Surviving, trying to be grateful for what I do have in the face of so much fear about what's happening in our country, what's happening with this disease. I'm at my best during this time when I remember to be grateful for my health, my family's health, for sunshine, for the simplest things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that and say we are just sort of drilling down deep into the gratitude right now because, there are so many people who are suffering through so much. And I think for us as creative people, when Attica and I chat, both as sisters and as creative people, we sit and think like, how can we use this moment for the highest and best good?
Sure.
And that is like both out in the world, but also just in our own personal lives, as moms, as sisters. So.
Well, you both have been very busy, and you've been in this business a long time, and we've been seeing your work, but it seems like right now is the Tembi and Attica moment or season or something.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Tembi, you have your best-selling book, memoir, From Scratch. There was a New York Times bestseller that has been turned into a Netflix series with Zoe Saldana.
Yep.
Attica, you have your fifth book. All right, I have the fourth one. You have the fifth one. And you have been the producer and writer on Empire, Little Fires Everywhere, which is amazing. And when They See Us.
Yes, and that Netflix adaptation you're talking about, it's a project that Tembi and I are doing together. So that's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
My book, From Scratch. Attica, first of all, I love to say that, what was it, Attica, like 3 years ago? It was 2017. So yes, 3 years ago, she was like, you have to write this book. And I say she lovingly, as only a sister can, was like, if you don't write this book, I'm not going to talk to you. So if you know my sister, then you know she might hold you to. I was like, I'm going to write this book. And so for now, fast forward to this moment where we have the joyous, appropriate word, opportunity to sort of take that and take it from a book to screen, which is what Attica has been doing so well for so long at such an incredibly high level that it's just been a blessing to watch and be a part to watch, both as her sister, but also as her professional partner, to sort of see her step into now this next phase around something that was really meaningful to us because, she lived this experience with me.
Sure. So what was that like working together?
It was pretty much like when we do everything together. I mean, we talk about the fact that as children, we used to play TV. We used to play, you would get an old box, and if it was big enough for you to get into it, you would cut a big square, and you would put some saran wrap over it, and that would be the screen. And then he would do some foil knobs and we'd get inside and act out stuff. So in some ways, we've been playing around and telling stories since we were kids. This is obviously at a different level. And I think we carried that playfulness with us, but also with the knowledge that we deeply had each other's back, that I would fundamentally protect her book and her life story, and that she would also protect me as the showrunner when she felt like, ooh, Attica looks a little stressed. Let's make sure she's doing okay. We just really took care of each other.
Yeah,
now,
a shorthand with sisters. That's wonderful.
Now, Tembi, in writing your book, and it's based on your life, and your love for your late husband, and love for Sicily, and everything about that. Was there any pressure from Attica? Because Attica here is the veteran author here, to like, okay, word usage, that's not, that kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing. I knew so here's the thing. When you have a sister who is an award-winning, accomplished novelist, you think long and hard before you go put some ideas on a page and think that you're going to put a book together, right? But she was so incredibly encouraging of me, and she was like, Tembi, you can do this. I know you have this book in you. I know you have this story. You've got to do this. And so in the process of writing, I was very much I would check in with her, because obviously as a first-time writer, I'm like, this is hard, and she was like, it is. Yeah. And, I would go to her for tips, really. I was like, so wait. And so suddenly I was seeing my sister, right, who, by the way, I've read her first, drafts of things. I've been there for each of her novels, but now me, in the same shoes, right, trying to do that for myself, I was turning to her now, not just as a sister who admired her, but almost as like, will you mentor me? Can you be a colleague? Can you kind of, help me to understand? I'm faltering today. Is that normal? Like, are you? And she was like, girl, that is so normal. She was like, walk away from the computer, go, come back. And that gave me such grace, peace of mind. And I have to say, having her in my back pocket when I would have hit the rough parts of writing about the book, and for those who've read the book know, having her to turn to was really uplifting and gave me confidence.
And also, what Tembi did is harder than what I did. I don't write memoirs. I make stuff up. I don't have to go and mine memory and pain in order to tell a broader human story. So what I told her many times, there are things that I can't help you with because what you were doing is actually more difficult than what I've ever done.
So, and Attica, I want you to speak a little bit about your process, because your books are mostly based, all of them are based in Houston, and some in Texas.
Texas, Louisiana, but we'll count that one.
Okay, but they have some kind of Texas connection, and I would imagine that you kind of go back to memories of growing up here and pull from those to create a story or a novel.
I do, but then the beautiful thing about fiction is nobody can hold you to what really happened.
Yeah,
I could, just add flourishes and kind of make it be of me, but then it's its own new kind of thing. And that's also helpful when you're pulling, like the first book I wrote, Blackwater Rising, the main character is a sketch of my dad. And I remember having to tell him, hey, I'm doing this thing. You and I are going to know this character is not you, but other people might think that's Gene. Everything about that character is Gene. But I always have the sense of, well, I made up a bunch of stuff about the character. It's not my dad. Whereas in Tembi's book, her family members are actual characters in the book, which is terrifying. I remember laughing, being like, I'm glad I'm not in your situation.
Oh, he teased me mercilessly about this because it is and to bring your family onto the page and sort of memorialize a moment in our lives, right, carries a certain weight to it. And trust me, there were many times I was like, could I fictionalize this? Could I just like make this, not a memoir, but I knew I really wanted to tell a first person story, a memoir. So,
and I have to mention to people who are watching, Gene Locke is your dad, who also is was a politician here too, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people know his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
He now says he's reached a point where people come up to him in the grocery store, not to talk about something he did, but to ask what's going to happen on Empire and what about Little Fires and Tembi's book and this, that, and the other.
Where would he say that you get your creative juices from? The gene in the family? Is that from him?
He would put himself in it. I don't know. It is not all from him, but he would put himself in it. And maybe because we do come from storytellers on both sides. We come from people who like to sit back, get a little whiskey, and tell a good story. But on both sides of our family, we have, on my mom's side of the family, my mom, Shara Aguirre, going back a couple of generations, people who started colored schools, people who published poetry. We've had writers and storytellers on both sides of our family. And it's kind of astonishing, really, that we've been touched by this kind of creativity on both sides.
How did you find the creative, fortitude, might be the word, to keep going and writing novels? Because a lot of people write one novel and then they're done, or maybe another one. But you keep it going.
Well, I'll say this: writing a book is the most fulfilling creative endeavor I've ever done, other than being a mother. There is nothing more fulfilling than sitting alone with yourself, contemplating deep thoughts and a story, and it takes a long time, and then you have it. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the most fulfilling creative thing I've ever done. The funnest creative thing I've ever done is TV. TV is just a lot of fun. Okay. And I'm trying to find a way now to balance these two so I can have both in my life, so that I can both have the joy of collaboration and also have the more slowed down, thoughtful, intense work of writing books. I just think I am a novelist, and I think that no matter what I do in my life, it's a thing that I don't want to lose. And in fact, I had a conversation with my manager yesterday. In a panic, I said to him, "You have to help me protect books. I do not want TV to swallow that up in my life. Help me make sure that there is space left for me to write books. It means that much to me."
That's fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit about TV for both of you. Tembi, you're an actress also, and you star in Never Have I Ever on Netflix, which it's a great, if you haven't seen it, it's a great show. I thought it was going to be a little young. I was going to be a little old for it, but I loved every part of it. I did. I loved every part of it. And how did that come about for you? And how do you like the acting versus the writing?
I say I love them both equally and in different ways. So Never Have I Ever happened for most actors in Hollywood. I got a call from my agent. There's this audition. I got a bit of the script, not the whole script. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me just, I'll go in and audition for this. And of course, that turned into, I think, a callback. And then I had the part. And before I know it, I'm on set and I'm filming. And, I knew it was Mindy Kaling's show. Everything was super top secret at the time, right? Even the whole scripts were not released to us. And so but it was funny. It was just, I laughed so hard. And I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting. So for me then, fast forward months later, because I think we shot that in the fall, and we're in the middle of now a global pandemic, and we're all sitting around at home, and the show drops on Netflix, right? And so I got the benefit of both being inside of it, and also watching it as a viewer unfold and being transported in this beautiful arc of storytelling about this young teenage girl. And it's about so much more than that. And I watched it with my daughter, and it was just beautiful. So I love doing both things. I say that I am also, as Attica said, a storyteller. I tell stories on screen as an actor, someone else's words. I get to write my own words in a book and in scripts. So I love doing both.
I love it too. And Attica, Empire. We have to talk about Empire.
Yeah.
We have to. So how did that come about, and what was that like? Like, I would have liked to be a fly on the wall during the middle of the writing session.
Well, Oh, it was a party. It was definitely a party. Ultimately, I had been writing books first of all, I was a screenwriter before I was a novelist.
Sure.
I had been writing scripts for years that just weren't getting made. And I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. I walked away from Hollywood and decided to write books, and did that, became a author, translated across the globe, traveling. That was my new identity. And I remember Tembi telling me, I don't think you're done with Hollywood yet. And I had some feelings about missing this thing that had been my first love. Mm-hmm. And also I got to pay for school and living in LA, and books don't really be doing that. Where mine do, we'll get you one of these. So anyway, I went back to my agents and said, let me get in on this TV game. Because while I had been writing books, television had become this place that was doing the most interesting storytelling. It had been reversed in the past, where, movies were the place where the gravitas was, where the serious adult, sociopolitical, thoughtful kind of stories were being told, and TV was fluff. And it is now kind of flipped. Not that there aren't deep independent films doing serious work, but a lot of mainstream movies are people in tights and fun and comedies, and television is doing deep character work. Television is doing deep sociopolitical storylines, and I wanted back in. And I came in with my own idea for something, and this was a couple of weeks before I met on Empire. They were like, that sounds really good. It's going to be hard because it's period, and it's kind of black. So, but we'll try. And then, of course, I go meet on Empire, which ended up changing the face of American television. Uh-huh. And with Empire, the script just leaped out of the stack of other scripts. It was just so like nothing I'd ever seen before. Uh-huh. And at every step of the way, every meeting I ever had with Lee Daniels and Danny Strong and Fox, all of it, it just felt like a fit. And it was one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. I have lifelong friends from that experience. And you're right, that first season when we had written everything before it blew up, and nobody knew what we were doing. Nobody cared what we were doing. I don't think Fox had big expectations about what it was going to do. Sure. But we were just entertaining the hell out of ourselves and just doing crazy stuff. And the thing about Lee Daniels is that, because he didn't come from TV, he didn't believe in any kind of rules about it. So if somebody pitched something crazy, I don't know if this is a family audience, but if somebody pitched something insane, and I know exactly who did it, a blowjob bib, and everyone else thinks that's just a joke. That's just a joke. Nobody can do that. Lee was like, we're doing it, or I walk from this show. So then there was a blowjob bib in episode 2. So it was just this crazy kind of time period where the wheels were off, there were no rules, and it was a ridiculous amount of fun.
Okay, so how in a situation like that, when it's crazy, is it like creative chaos going on and trying to get something written?
No, it isn't. It's strange because I'd never written TV before. So when I first got there and there were 15 people around a table, I went, huh? I don't get
how do you write an episode with
what happens is that over time, talking together and talking about what you all think the show is about, you come to a consensus, and you are of course led by your executive producers. And then the process is thus that you as a team arc out the whole season, and you kind of look at it and say, hey, we've got about 18 episodes. I feel like we know where we want to end. About a third of the way through, we need to be here. Okay. About a sixth of the way through, we need to be here. And so that begins to shape the overall arc of the season. And then you do that same thing episode by episode as a team. And then one person goes off and writes an outline and writes the script. Okay. But you have come up with pretty much every scene idea with the team. It's when you get into the actual writing on your own that you get to add these flavors and lines of dialogue that are very specific, or in particular angle on how to do the scene. That's where you get this real creativity, but it is so collaborative.
Well, I think I met you the first time when I interviewed you. I did a story on the cultural phenomenon of Empire and its influence on society and fashion. And Empire
yes.
put cookie style on the map, you know? And it was fabulous to see that. So
it was interesting on that show that how much we at a certain point our writing became informed by her costuming. But I remember from a budgeting point of view, because she was getting the real stuff. That wasn't fake Versace, fake Dolce & Gabbana. That was real. So I remember we would have to make sure there weren't too many days an episode because she had too many outfits that cost too much money.
I remember when you first started on the show, one, first, how excited you were. Two, when you got in the room and as these relationships and stories started to sort of meld together, I could see the joy in you, Attica. And I knew, I was like, this is a huge part of who she is and she has to keep doing this. And then
that's fantastic. Now, Tembi, your book From Scratch was picked by Reese Witherspoon for her book club, Hello Sunshine. And I think that was the first kind of hit for your book, right?
Yes, definitely.
And then it became a New York Times bestseller. And I'm sure you were pinching yourself.
Joy, I am still pinching myself. I will say, listen, you don't set out to tell a very personal, intimate story, put it on page. And I really thought, if 5 people read this, 15, 50, I'll be happy because I wrote a book, and I was good. So that it would make its way, into the hands of Reese Witherspoon, that she would pick it for her book club, that then, what she does is beautifully amplify the voices of female writers, right? In such a way. And she's changed so many writers' lives because of her love of books and her love of story and her love of the characters that she sees in these books and the strength that it exemplifies for women. And so that I could be a part of that in any way was just like phenomenal. And I'm still pinching myself.
So if you're not familiar with From Scratch, will you tell everybody who's watching a little bit about it?
Yeah, you're going to laugh at this because literally I've written the book. I have now been a part of adapting the book, and my elevator pitch for my own book is still terrible. No, but I will say it's essentially, it is a love story. And it follows the love I had with my late husband, who was a chef. And it follows the summers that I spent in Sicily with my daughter after his passing as I'm rebuilding and repairing my life, along with my mother-in-law, and who initially our relationship was not very close. I'll leave it at that for people who have not read the book. But it is basically a love letter to love. It's a love letter to Sicily, and it's also about forgiveness and family and food and sex and love and travel and youth and motherhood and all the good stuff. And there's recipes.
I like to say it is Romeo and Juliet if the Capulets were from East Texas and the Montagues were Sicilian.
There you go.
He has the elevator pitch.
I love that.
Knows how to pitch my book.
And nobody drinks poison to them.
Well, what I think is so beautiful is that I haven't read a book like that of a Black woman who has this experience that, you don't read about us having. And I think it was not only beautifully written, it gave me, it put me there. Like I felt like I was in Sicily with you. I felt like I was eating whatever you were eating. I felt like I was on the boat ride and you saw an old boyfriend. I felt all of that. I did. Oh, and I just think it was beautiful. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell me, how did it come about that it becomes adapted for a series for Netflix?
Okay. I can take this one. Okay. So I was working on Little Fires Everywhere.
It's amazing too.
I was about to, I love that show. I'm so proud of it. So I was about to start Little Fires Everywhere. And I was about to go on a trip. You remember those when people went on trips? Remember that? I was about to go on a trip before I started the job. And I wanted to read the pilot script so I could kind of get my juices going. They were being very secretive about the pilot script, which meant I had to go into Hello Sunshine's offices. That's Reese Witherspoon's company. So I went into the office to read the pilot script, and her exec VP that runs everything over there, Lauren Newstatter, pulled me aside and say, hey, let's just talk for a few minutes about maybe other stories you'd like to work on. She started pitching me stories, and she pitched me a story about a woman and her complicated relationship with her mother-in-law. And I went, That's interesting. You know what? I want to hear a mother-in-law story. And then I just pitched my entire sister's book within 10, 12 minutes. And by the time I walked out of there, Lauren Newstadter at Hello Sunshine said, I want to read this book this week. And I think we were in her office within 7 days, sitting down to talk about how we would do this.
Wow. Do you know what it was? What was it that really got her?
Well, you go to, yeah, you go.
I mean, I think, I don't, here's what I can say, that Reese picks her books. So there's the book club piece of it all, but the adaptation piece of it all, I think what they saw is kind of what you said, Joy, that seeing a Black woman in a story of transformation, right? That involves two countries, two languages, it spans, decades of her life, that kind of expansive, we have not seen that story for a Black woman on screen, right? We've seen our Eat, Pray, Loves, we've seen Under the Tuscan Suns, right? And so I think there was something cinematic that, the producers at Hello Sunshine recognized within the story, and that they wanted to sort of say, hey, would you want to work with us to sort of take it to screen? And of course we were like, yeah.
That's fantastic. And Zoe Saldana.
Mm-hmm.
So did you pick, or did you have, how did that happen? How did that happen?
That is called grace, because that's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
Zoe is, I don't even worry. Zoe is divine, right? She is so incredibly smart and talented. And, the book got in her hands. And that's probably some Reese magic, right? Got in her hands, and turns out, Zoe's husband's Italian.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Zoe knows loss intimately. There were big themes in the book that just spoke to her heart. And she and her sisters.
She works with her sisters.
They are her producing partners. So we have this team of 5 women of color, right? The Saldana sisters, the Locke sisters, coming together to help, because they're producers on the project, with Zoe at the center, realizing this role. And she is phenomenal and so gifted and so heart-centered that it just, for me personally, is beyond my wildest dreams. And it is like such a tremendous honor. And I can't wait to see her make this hers.
Exactly. I can't wait. I can't wait either. I really can't. I mean, we've been waiting for something like this for so long. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen Eat, Pray, Love and Under the Tuscan Sun, wishing it was me. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, So I'm excited.
And when I wrote it, I was really thinking to myself, if more than, my family's going to read this book, right? I know my family will probably read it, I think. But if more people than them want to read it, what are the things I, as a reader, look for? And like you, Joy, I read those books, right? Women who were at a critical inflection point in their lives and who could go somewhere. And I wanted to write the book that was about going somewhere, but really was about finding the home within. Sure. Because we don't always get to get on a plane like right now and go somewhere and flee a moment of turmoil in our lives. And when I was caregiving for my husband, I couldn't really flee and go, right? But in the book, sort of, I'm not going to get into the story points of the book, but that was really something that I hoped I might be able to bring to the page, and that readers would see, of all colors, right? Yes. See themselves in this cross-cultural love story, in this story of evolution, of motherhood, of womanhood. So,
and I asked you when you were in Houston, when you were on your book tour, and you stopped in Houston, and I asked you, I said, would you get married again? And I can't remember exactly what you said, because I after with such a beautiful story, a love story about your husband and the loss going through that, I wondered if that would be a roadblock to moving on. But you just got married. Congratulations. Congratulations. You got married during a pandemic. It's amazing.
I did. We did a backyard, quarantined, just the 3 of us, my daughter, Robert, my new husband, and I under a fig tree in the backyard. And it was simple and so heartfelt and perfect for this moment. It sort of it just sort of synthesized, brought everything down to its most essential and important thing, which is really making a commitment and vows to each other as a unit. And that's what we did.
That's fantastic.
And I will say this, I hoped for another love for my sister. I know that my brother-in-law, Sato, wanted that for her. I know that those are some of his last things that he said to her. But I also know the breadth of my sister's heart and what I have been told and things that I've looked at and talked with therapists about. People who have the capacity to love big, if they've had it once and they saw it and they could create it, they're able to do it again. That it's almost like a skill set that if you can love that big once, you can do it again.
That's amazing. And congratulations.
Thank you.
And does it make telling his story, because you're still talking about your book, you're still, doing interviews. Does it make it harder or easier to tell the story now?
It's sort of still unchanged for me. I mean, I could tell, listen, anyone out there who has lost a partner, if you have had child loss, if you've had a sibling that you lose, it doesn't stop you from loving the other sibling you have or the other child you have, or if you repartner. So I love Sato and I love talking about him, but I also love talking about the second love story in that book, which is the love story with my mother-in-law, who also recently passed away. And so the book really, when I go out and I talk about it, I often ask myself, what right now can this one story touch in someone else? And I usually try to approach any conversation about the book as something greater than the singular romantic love story I had with Sato, but something that sort of invites us all to sort of connect with the love in our hearts. And that allows me to do it. And, I have a new partner who is, when he read the book, he was like, oh my gosh, he was blown away. And I was very hesitant, obviously, for my, boyfriend at the time to read my book about my so I was like, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe it's done now. I don't know. But, he came back to me and said the most beautiful thing. He said, this book has really given me a gift because you've given me a roadmap to your heart.
Oh.
And
Robert giving us everything.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Congratulations again. I want to go back to your time in Houston. You both grew up here, right? You went to high school here.
Yes.
And what was that like? Were you thinking that I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to do this and I'm going to write books and I'm gonna, be a star, that kind of thing?
I mean, I was a theater geek. So I was in every play that I could get cast in. I knew very early on I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to, find my way to Hollywood. I didn't know what that roadmap would look like because I was in Alief, Texas, Houston, and how do you get from there to Hollywood? I had no clue. But I knew I wanted to do that. I think that what was interesting was later when Attica and I after college found ourselves both in LA at the same time. That's when we realized, oh, there's something more here. That thing we've been doing since we were kids, we can do now. And in high school, Attica was in a lot of plays as well.
Yeah, I was. I don't know what came over me because I can't act anymore. I don't know how I ever did that, but I acted a lot. And I wanted to be a movie director. That was really my plan. I wanted to find a way to tell stories through movies. But we were regular high school kids. I mean,
that's hard to believe. I'm sorry, that's hard to believe. That's hard to believe. That's hard to believe.
I was at West Oaks Mall off Highway 6. Every moment I could get a chance at the corn dog stand.
Yeah, yes.
And then I don't know what was it back then. I don't even remember what the sort of big anchor stores were back then.
Mervyn's and Macy's.
Yeah,
probably, or Foley's.
Foley's, yes.
Foley's.
No, we were just kids. I mean, it was, it was
and probably more. We had much more of a typical sitcom sibling dynamic when we lived together than we do now, because we are pretty chill now. We would tease each other and play pranks on each other. And
She played pranks. She played pranks.
I don't know.
Played pranks.
I was the older, so you started it. You were the first original prankster. But my mom made her drive me to school when she didn't want to, so I didn't have to take the bus, and we were dorks.
And you have another sibling. You have other siblings. Another sibling.
We have 3 and 2.
Okay.
We have from my mom's second marriage, we have 2 sisters, Ivana and Michelle. And then from my dad's second marriage, we have 3 brothers. So Thomas, Douglas, and Nick. So there's a bunch of us.
Now, do you come in for family gatherings or anything like that? Do you still, and what's that conversation like at home? Are you just talking about just home stuff or Hollywood or what?
Home stuff. I barely get a word in edgewise because these people who are my family in America, they talk a lot, and I just kind of sit back and observe. They are loud, and I love them. So every time we come to Houston, which is probably like 3 times a year we're there, more or less.
Lots of Beyonce talk.
Yeah,
lots of Beyonce talk.
Lots of Beyonce talk in our family. Yes.
Well, everybody's talking about Beyonce.
Everybody's talking about Beyonce.
What about Houston sister dynamics, right? So her and Solange, right?
Right.
Then we've got, we have Debbie Allen.
Yes, Debbie and Felicia.
Other sisters from Houston.
Yeah.
We're in good company.
Yeah. Yes. And our brothers are also super creative people as well. Right. Our brother Doug is pretty incredible with music and has made a bit of a name for himself in that space. Doug Locke, you should look him up. And so our brother Nick is pursuing acting. He's also an incredible dancer. Thomas is the serious one. Thomas is more the serious one who's about to get a master's degree while we're twiddling around.
And Attica, before I wanted to ask about When They See Us and your work with that and how that came about, because to go from Empire to, to a very serious docudrama, I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Based on a real life events in New York.
Basically, I had already left Empire by then. And Ava reached out. Ava had heard my
really?
name.
What was that like? She just called you on the phone like, hey, I'm Ava DuVernay?
Oh, we FaceTimed or Zoomed. And I just was like, oh, this is Ava DuVernay. Okay, this is happening. And I was nervous, but in a way I wasn't nervous because I actually, it's one of those things where if you get the privilege to do it, you got the privilege to do it. But
sure.
If you don't, what are you going to do? You want the best thing for those men and for their story. And if that's me, great. If it isn't me, that's fine. I did make sure that she knew my dad's a lawyer, my husband's a lawyer. I know some stuff about law. I made sure to get that in.
Sure.
But I think what she responded to, I hope, was that I took it very seriously, that I just thought that it was such a necessary story to tell. And in some ways, she took a chance on me. There's no other way to put it than how would she know? She took a chance. And we had a very small writer's room. It was an eye-opening experience for me, who I'm the same age as those men. So I could think about my life and think about what happened where I was April 19th, 1989, and all the life I got to live after that. Whereas those gentlemen, something froze in their lives at that time. We met with all the men. We did extensive interviews. When I say extensive, we met with them individually for probably 6 to 7 hours apiece. And we probably prepped for those interviews for 2 to 3 weeks because we wanted to make sure we got every question answered. And we wanted the questions to have a flow that allowed them to open up and we don't want to get in their face with the worst thing that ever happened, but wanting to find a way for them to feel comfortable enough to open up with us. And they did. And that was probably one of the more, I just don't have words for what it meant to sit with them and sit with their pain. For them to be willing to let their pain be in a room with virtual strangers. They're such fundamentally good people. And when you think about their childhood being robbed, it was a lot to take in. But we had a mission then that we were going to follow the truth, follow their truth, and let their story be heard. And I feel like it was the highest and best use of my talent to lend and I do have a legal mind. I mean, I like to pretend that if I didn't have to take a bar exam, I could be a lawyer, but not true. But anyway, I get to play a lawyer in scripts. And so I felt like the fact that I could take this intense legal stuff and make it make sense to viewers, like how the prosecutors did the things that they did, I am very proud to have been able to contribute to that.
And for people who might not be familiar with the show, with the movie, can you give them just a synopsis?
Absolutely. It's a snapshot of New York City at a very particular point in time where there was a lot of crime. There was a lot of sense of brown folks feeling like the whole city didn't belong to them, that they had to only be in one section. And there were a bunch of kids on April 19th, Easter weekend. I think it was that Wednesday night before they had a big long weekend. A bunch of these Black kids out of Harlem and some Latino kids went into Central Park to kind of just hang out. And there were a group of them, and they were doing goofy stuff like throwing rocks at bikes and jumping out in front of cars and doing the kind of thing that if other white kids were doing it, it would be called rabble rousing, where it was criminalized because they were Black. And it was seen as they were doing something deadly, as opposed to just acting kind of stupid. And of the 5 men whose story that we follow, which is Corey Wise and Yusuf Salaam and Raymond Santana and Kevin Richardson and oh my God, Attica, Antron McCrae. Those 5 young boys, they didn't know each other. Only 2 of them had ever met and known each other. They were just all out there separately. And separately, when some of the older kids started roughing around and, like I said, jumping in front of bikes and acting kind of rough, they were like, okay, we're out of here. And some of them were actually arrested leaving the park because they were just lumped in. You're Black. These other kids were doing something, so you're in trouble too. Y'all are all going to the precinct for something like some small misdemeanor thing about illegal gathering or something like that. And they were waiting for their parents to come pick them up. It's like a tiny little ticket where you have to go to family court, but they couldn't release them until their parents came. What happened while waiting for all the parents to come is somebody found the body of this woman who was barely clinging to life, who had been raped. And the LAPD and the New York prosecutor's office, their read on it was the people who did this crime are probably already in the precinct. It's got to be some of those boys. Wow. And then they went with that idea and had a very narrow point of view and made the evidence fit the narrative they had in their minds. And because of that, those 5 men lost a huge portion of their lives and are still in many ways dealing with trauma.
Wow. You know, as this is part of the National Association of Black Journalists Convention and the National Hispanic Journalists Convention, I want to ask, have you had any kind of issues of fighting to tell those type of stories in Hollywood about us, about people of color, just living their lives?
Yes, I think something is shifting. Let's talk in about 6 years to see if the shift is real. Right. But presently there is a sense of a shift, and but a lot of times the thing that the reason why people say no to stuff is that the people who are making the decisions are not of color and have some idea that their whiteness is the median of American experience, that is what normal American is. It's white. And that if you're telling a Filipino story or you're telling a South Asian story, there's a sense that white folks aren't going to watch that, as opposed to believing in the idea that people's humanity supersedes all of that. And sometimes they say no to shit because they just don't get it. And they don't get it because they've not been around certain people and it doesn't make any sense to them. And that's part of the problem as well. So having more people of color in decision-making positions is the only way that we deeply can diversify Hollywood. It's really the only way to make it happen.
Now, we have a lot of journalists who might be even watching, hopefully, who might be looking to expand, to get outside of the newsroom and to tell a story that's in front of, maybe it's a documentary, maybe it's telling a book in a memoir or a novel. What kind of advice would you give to them? Tembi?
Yeah, one of the people who first encouraged me once I had the book and I was thinking of taking it to screen was someone who's a journalist, and her name is Dana Calvo, and she came from journalism, and she has created a career for herself as a Hollywood, executive producer. So it can be done, and knowing every time you see someone out there who has done it, follow, study them, understand sort of the path that they took, but ultimately really just believing in your story, believing in the strength and the need for it to be in the world will get you up in the morning and will make you do your day job, which is your journalism, and also sort of plant the seeds and sort of grow and really learning whatever that other storytelling medium is, be it documentaries, be it books. But you can definitely, storytelling is incredibly expansive. So yes, go for it.
Yeah, I would also say that, depending on what your approach is, whether or not you want to produce a documentary, or which I couldn't speak to nearly as much as I can speak to what it is to have a script or have a manuscript and that be your way in, then my big advice would be that manuscript has to be as tight and as engaging as it possibly can be. And there are incredible mentoring relationships that can be found online. There are online classes. I know Tembi took a lot of online classes at UCLA Extension. They have an incredible writing program, everything from screenwriting to memoir to creative nonfiction, just so many wonderful things. And I know Tembi took a lot of those classes, even some of them during the time when her husband was ill. She found a way to beef up that skill set. And so look for those kind of resources, because it's all going to at some point come down to you meet the right person and you say, I have a manuscript. And when you give it to them, you want it to be the absolute best that it can be.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Tembi, so you took these classes. Did you know that you wanted to write a memoir?
No, I took the classes really. When Sato became ill, when he was diagnosed with cancer, and I suddenly was thrown into being a full-time caregiver. And I also was the breadwinner in the house because he stopped working for treatment. So I couldn't quite act. I couldn't sort of get on a plane and go be on set somewhere for, 3 weeks at a time. So I was home a lot. And I thought, I had a mentor in my life. Her name is Julie Areola. I will say her name until my dying breath. And she said to me, you are a creative person. What other ways can you be creative? And I thought, well, I used to enjoy writing. Let me see about that. And so I signed up for a writing class at UCLA Extension. That led to another class, another class, another class. And I ended up doing a certificate program in creative nonfiction. And out of that, I realized, I have thousands of words and so many essays I've written here. I know.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, that's fantastic. All right, so both of you are moms, and I want to find out if your kids think you're the cool moms, because you are cool to me. So I wonder if your kids think you as cool.
I was cool for like 5 minutes of the episode of Never Have I Ever, when my character has her beautiful moment with her daughter. My actual daughter turned to me and she goes, oh my God, Mom, you are so good. I'm so proud of you for being in the show. I was like, why weren't the cameras rolling on that? Because I want to play that back for her over and over again. So no, she does not. She's probably wondering where I am right now. She actually says, why are you still talking about that book? Kids.
Attica?
No, she does not. She has read 2 of my books, and she seems to like them.
Mm-hmm.
And she did think it was cool to be on set of Little Fires Everywhere. She has a very small cameo in the episode that I wrote. And I think she thought that that was kind of fun, and she got a little bit of a paycheck for it. But I do not think, and she probably can hear me as I'm talking right now, I do not think that my daughter thinks that I'm cool.
I actually, when Zoe, we met, Zoe Saldana about selling the show, I said, would you maybe record a message for Zoella? Like, so we did a little iPhone message. Okay, that I was cool for. That was the other 5 minutes that I was cool. So, there you go.
Okay, so I know a lot of people might be even wondering, you all have cool names, Attica and Tembi. Do you know the history of those names?
Yes, we do. I'll go first. I'm I was the oldest, the firstborn, the eldest, I should say. So my name is South African, and my full name is Tembi Keeley. Which means one who's trustworthy. It's South African, Osa, and I was named by Miriam Makeba.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that's in your book, because I did read that.
Yeah, growing up, I was like, why do I have this big name? Now I love it.
I was named after a prison uprising, a revolution. Which I also love. That was my mom's idea. I was born in 74. I got to get that in there because the riot was in 71. I got to get them 3 years back. I don't want people thinking. So I was born in 74, and my mom just said I came out and she said, Attica, that's what she saw. And what I love about it now, and I like Tembi growing up, was like, wait, I'm named after a prison. What now? That's weird. But I understand now that my mom was trying to teach me about the power of the word no. That there are just some things we viscerally say, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Right.
And that has power. And also that there is a base level of humanity that we never need to go beneath. Even when we're talking about prisoners, even if we're talking about people who've committed horrible crimes, there's a certain way we're not going to be treating people like dogs, period.
Sure. I have a question. First of all, I want to ask if anyone has questions out there, please put your question out there and we will get it answered. In Hollywood, and we've gone through the Oscars so white and all of that, do you think that it's getting better now? And I know you mentioned that things, we're at this period where things may be changing, but do you think it has gotten better? In terms of
it was so bad. How could it not be better? it was so terrible that how could it not be better when just 3 extra people get in the room? But the Emmys this year in the limited series category, it's almost all Black women who are nominated for Best Acting by an Actress in a Limited Series. So I do think it's increasing. We got a minute to see if this is long lasting, and also to see that. I shouldn't say this publicly. I shouldn't say it publicly.
Then don't say it. I
don't know if we're ever going to get to a point. I never again want to see, I'm going to say it, Green Book or something like that win. I don't want to see that anymore. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see no more helps. I don't want to see the help no more.
Okay.
I'm in trouble. I still want to work with any of these people who made these movies.
That's okay. I think they've heard it before. I don't think this is anything new,
I would say, when in reading scripts, right? Also in the acting end of things, when I see script, I see different perspectives coming through on the page in terms of storytelling. The question becomes, do they get the might of all the marketing and get in the forefront of the public eye? Right now, I am loving watching Michaela with I May Destroy You. Wow, that show is a game changer in terms of giving us a new voice and perspectives we haven't seen. As a viewer, forget me as an artist, as a viewer, I want to be transported inside of stories and perspectives I don't know anything about, right?
Sure.
That's what I want. So I get a little bored, quite frankly, when you're seeing the same thing sort of treaded over and over and over again. So I think Hollywood is figuring that out. They've got viewers like me and probably many people watching right now who want to see a diversity and a multiplicity of stories and perspectives. So I think they're getting hip to it. I think.
Good. So we're getting toward the end, and I just want to remind everybody that next year is the the National Association of Black Journalists will have their national convention in Houston. Woo. So hopefully if we're back to some normalcy, we'll have an in-person convention. What do you like most about Houston?
Okay,
share that.
Attica,
I love how you like, okay, all right then.
Go, Attica, go.
Well, first and my brother Thomas will say some stuff about this. I love that Good Company Taqueria off Kirby. Let's start there. I love Brass's bookstore. I love Cavender's and Luke Casey getting booths from their stores. And I just love being home and the trees and the bayous. And it's just home for me. And I think that it has a, for lack of a better word, je ne sais quoi. There's a thing about the bluesiness of Houston and the humbleness of it that I just deeply, deeply love.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that and say
Frenchies.
Okay, that is exactly what. So here's the thing. The thing I love about Houston, yes, food, all that, topography, love it, don't love it. I'm gonna be truthful, can't stand it. But I love the people of Houston. And there is nothing like, you cannot have a trip to Houston without going back to Frenchies and just being there with people and hearing the cadence and hearing Houston and the way people are so open. I mean, you can be at, the grocery store checkout line, you can be anywhere in Houston, and that sort of openness of spirit comes through. And I'm also going to say, when I decided to do my Zoom wedding, right, online, out of nowhere, I was like, we need some music. Well, how could we have music? And then I was like, oh, Houston native, Colleen Crusoe.
Oh, yes.
Singer.
Yes.
I was like, maybe I'll just ask Colleen. Like, I don't know if she'll do it. Girl.
Yes, she did.
She did, because it's that Houston spirit. It's that Houston spirit. And she was like, of course. And so here it felt so at home, right? And she was right here in LA, probably across town, but it felt like a Houston connection as she sang and serenaded us. And I thought it was so generous. It was just so generous, in a time when people are going through so much. And I know she has she took time out to just lend her voice to a beautiful moment. And that to me is Houston.
That's fantastic. All right. So we are still in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes, we are.
What are you do? What is like your binge thing that you're doing? Are you cleaning? Are you TV watching? Are you writing, journaling? Are you yard work? What are you doing?
Reading.
Okay.
I read a lot, and I love to read with wine. That's my doing, because it feels like going somewhere. It actually feels like going on an adventure. Okay. The book is taking you someplace else. The wine is relaxing. That's kind of my favorite thing. I will say I have a love affair with, I don't want to call it trash TV, but TV that's a little, because I've done everything from Tiger King to Marrying Millions to I don't know what, to them Bachelor Reduxes, all that stuff. And Indian matchmaking was real good. I was on that for a minute. So I do like some light, fun stuff like that.
Okay.
For me, I have to say, we got a screen, one of those, portable screens and a projector. And so we've been doing backyard movies.
Oh, that's great. That's
fun. That has been a lift, because I feel like I'm in my house. All I've done is take 4 steps outside the door, but I'm suddenly in a new space, and that screen, right? Just a little Bluetooth speaker makes me feel like I'm so we do that as a family. That's been really fun. The other thing I do is, and this is not a term that I coined, but I take a lot of naps, but I don't call them naps. I call them a meditation.
Meditation.
I wish I could say I was meditating. It might start like that, but by the end, I'm in a nap.
Meditation.
It's a meditation. So I encourage people to do a meditation 10 to 15 minutes a day.
All right.
How are we going to get through this?
I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know.
Our minds and our hearts.
I know.
We have to rest.
Okay, so I'm going to try the meditation. Maybe that will help. All right, last question. And I always ask all my guests, what are you doing to find joy? What brings you joy during this time?
My child, just a minute ago, earlier today, she let me lay down in bed with her while she was sleeping late, and I just watched her little face, and I felt happy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Tembi?
Yeah, I would say similarly. I mean, anytime I see it in this moment, a smile on my daughter's face is a lift. It's a mood enhancing. It's like a spark of joy instantly. And we're doing a lot of cooking. I mean, it's me, so we cook a lot, and she's baking a lot. And that moment to be together, I'm aware that this isn't going to go on forever. She is going to grow up and move on. And so that I get this, I'm trying to find the silver lining and that extra moment of grace that's inside all of this confinement.
Sure.
If it's us cooking together in that way, then I'm all for it. And that's a joyous thing. And Robert does the dishes.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. Attica Locke and Tembi Locke. They are from Houston and Hollywood, doing great things. Their web address is on the ticker that you see on the bottom. And ladies, thank you so much for joining us. This is being presented by the Houston Association of Black Journalists and the Houston Chronicle for the virtual National Association of Black Journalists and his National Hispanic Association of Black Journalists Convention. Oh, I got it.
Hold up our journalists. Our journalists are
they're holding us up.
Homage to all of our journalists. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We will take it. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.